We made good progress across intelligence disciplines. Disruptions, renditions, and sensitive collection activities no doubt saved lives. However, we never penetrated the 9/11 plot overseas.
Welcome back to this special edition of Hardball. We're joined right now by Kristen Breitweiser and Lorie Van Auken. Both lost their husbands in the 9/11 attack. Kristen, did that surprise you, that total lay-down admission by the CIA director, no progress, no hope, could never get inside of al-Qaeda?
No, I mean, I think he hinted towards it the last time he testified that, obviously they owed the American people and the families much more. I think what he said today was that they did infiltrate Afghanistan. They did have some agents on the ground there. But unfortunately, in the summer of 2001, all of the hijackers were in America at that point. And really, I think that it was up to the FBI to find them here.
Do you think the FBI is going to take the fall here, Kristen?
I don't know. I think that certainly the FBI has some explaining to do with their failure.
Why is everybody so nice to the CIA?
I don't think I'm being nice to the CIA.
No, everybody on the hearing was. And do you have a problem with the CIA or not?
You know what? Obviously, I have some problems with the CIA, but I do know at the same time that Tenet did declare war with bin Laden back in '98. And, obviously he saw it as a priority, and he was shouting from the rooftops in the summer and spring of 2001. Nevertheless, there are some glaring problems that need to be addressed, and I would have hoped that the commission would have asked those pointed questions to Director Tenet.
Well, George Tenet was asked today about the statement he made about Moussaoui. That was the guy taking flight lessons out of Minneapolis to David Boren on the morning of a 9/11, when he did admit some knowledge of that character trying to get flight lessons. Let's take a look.
In the Woodward book, you say, immediately upon learning of the 9/11 attacks, that it's al-Qaeda, and you mentioned somebody in a flight school. I assume that's Moussaoui. Is that correct?
These are words attributed to me. I don't recall that piece of it, but I know I got up immediately and said it's got to be al-Qaeda.
Lorie Van Auken, why do you think he said that odd way of saying something? I know those words were attributed to me. He didn't deny them. He didn't agree to them. He didn't say anything except, I know those words were attributed to me. Why do people talk like that? Why don't they say, I said it or I didn't say it?
I can't answer that. We read everywhere that that's what he said, and, certainly in the Woodward book. I would hope that, Bob Woodward would have done a good job in checking his facts. But,
if he didn't do a good job of checking his facts, you got to believe that George Tenet would have corrected him right at that moment.
Kristen, do you want to say something about that?
Obviously he didn't correct it as a misstatement, so one would have to assume that it was a valid statement. And of course that raises problems, because we know that Murad, the gentleman that we heard testimony about in the spring of 2001, attended the very same flight school as Moussaoui that they apparently picked up in the middle of August in 2001. And there are questions there, because Murad was interested in flying planes into buildings, which would have been certainly enough dots to connect for the CIA and the FBI. And we need to find out why that wasn't put together.
Well, speaking of dots, we heard this morning about a whole series of events that triggered the notion of planes flying into buildings, and that certainly contrasts with the rather sweeping statement of Condi Rice a couple of weeks back that no one could have imagined planes being used as missiles. For some reason, I have to say it wasn't helpful. The president last night again said that no one could have imagined using planes as missiles, when in fact we're getting a whole stream of testimony about that concern. By the way, here's Commissioner Richard Benveniste talking about that NORAD, that agency had considered a scenario where planes were used as missiles and flown into the Pentagon. Let's take a look.
A couple of months before September 11th, we know that there was a planning session by NORAD where military officials considered a scenario in which a hijacked foreign commercial airliner flew into the Pentagon. Months before. And so people clearly were thinking about this possibility.
Kristen?
Yes?
Well, look how far we've come, thanks to your pestering of the United States government. We've come from a government which absolutely denied that they could even imagine planes being used as missiles, to a government that is coughing up all this information. NORAD, the plans regarding the Olympics in Atlanta in 1996, the plans regarding the G8 meeting that summer of 2001. It's funny how everybody went tickle a little bit starts coughing and getting information out. Talk about it, if you will.
Chris, I think that one of the things that we need to get answered now is that at the end of that statement made by Ms. Rice is the fact that they were expecting a traditional hijacking, which raises the question, why then expecting a traditional hijacking in the summer of 2001, NORAD was still in a post-Cold War posture looking out. We had absolutely no air defense over New York and Washington. The F-16s were very, very late. The FAA was late in notifying NORAD. We need to find out why we were ill-prepared for a traditional hijacking, which Ms. Rice has raised was what they were expecting.
Can I add something to that also?
Sure, go ahead, Lorie.
You know, we're women, and I think that for us, we don't play shoot 'em up as young kids. We basically, you know, will lock the door if we see a problem or get a dog or buy an alarm. We think about defense. And one of the things that, you know, we understand the offensive side of all of this, but we have always asked the question, why were we so undefended on 9/11? And I think that still needs to be asked, and the commission still needs to look at it.
We're going to